And welcome. Today we got Stan Ozark, Boomer. I was at the C a couple days there. Saw you there, and quite a tournament there in Billings at Metro Park for the Class C boys and girls.
Yeah, we were just before we went on, we were talking about the girls and North Country, Saco, Whitewater, Hinsdale, and that domination that they had throughout that tournament. It was impressive. I think a lot of people maybe thought North Country would be the favorite going in. They were unbeaten, and but just I guess the word I continued to use was domination. And like we were talking about before we went on, it all starts defensively with them. And the great thing about North Country defensively is that it's not just throwing pressure on a team; it's all orchestrated, right? I mean, Amber, we talk a lot about how great of a coach Amber Erickson is, but it's so true. They are coached so well from the moment. They set that defense up to even when a opposing team grabs a defensive rebound and how that's all orchestrated and how they're going to jump that rebounder. I'm kind of a numbers guy, but they only averaged like 5 or 10 fouls per game in those 3 games they played. And when you consider the kind of defense that they played, the full court pressure defense continually, um, 10 fouls per game, that's pretty gosh darn impressive. And I think a lot of
Yeah,
people walked away from that thinking, wow, right? That's, I think, what they were saying is wow with North Country.
yeah. That's I didn't realize that number. That's pretty impressive number. I know we used to probably lead the conference in fouls, but with our pressure defense. But I didn't realize that they had that few of fouls. The thing that stands out that they only allowed 25 points a game at the state tournament.
25 points a game and well, averaging like 58. I mean, that first game of the tournament, they had the running clock. You don't see that very often. And the other statistic that just blows me away with North Country, and we've seen this, we didn't really have these statistics during the regular season. I'd be interested to know if they kept them. Points off turnovers, half their points in every game uh, came off of turnovers. They had in the championship game, they had 27 points off turnovers. They had 26 in the semifinal game, and then 37 against Chinook. Those are just points off of turnovers uh, for North Country. So they're forcing the turnovers, and they're really taking advantage of that, and they're capitalizing on it and scoring at the other end. Um, and then the amount of runs that they can go on, right? Against Twin Bridges, they had a 22-2 run. Against Manhattan Christian, 24-2, and against Chinook, 23-3 run at one time during those games. This is against teams that came in with 1 or 2 losses, right?
Yeah,
And they were beating them like that, which is just so impressive. In that Manhattan Christian game, the semifinals, my kid was he was keeping track, and I don't know how good a job he does keeping track on this, but he said it was 5 to 6 minutes at that one point uh, that Manhattan Christian didn't get the ball over half court because of the pressure. 5 to 6 minutes that they weren't even able to set up in their half court offense or get the ball across to try something. That is just
right.
pure total domination by North Country.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Boomer, they're going to be good next year. We know that. They got great kids coming back. They lose a couple, but they're going to be good. Who else did you see in the tournament on the girls' side that kind of stood out that you kind of expect might be back into that state tournament next year?
How about Plentywood, right? I mean, a kind of
Yeah,
a
that's
surprise
my
there.
pick.
Plentywood, and I probably didn't give Plentywood the recognition they deserved. They were unbeaten going into that divisional tournament with North Country, played them to 1 point. Um, but they're going to be tough next year. And obviously, well coached, they end up taking home a trophy. Um, and in fact, you could argue they lost that first round game, a tough loss there. They got handled pretty good, but other than that, they might have been the second best team in the tournament by the end of the tournament as well as they were playing. I think Plentywood is that one team that really stands out to me, and it's going to be a battle next year with Plentywood and North Country. Obviously, North Country returns the two big all-state players in Wasson and Erickson, but and they lose, Cora Labrie, who was a key part of that team. I think she was
Right.
that unsung player defensively and also could hit some shots. And then Matea McCauley had a great state tournament. They lose her; she was a bulldog out there for them.
Right.
But Amber knows how to. She has Scheffelmeyer, who was an all-conference player, as the sixth man for North Country. She'll come and she'll play some or she will start. Josie Brown got some playing time this year, so they reload at North Country. And when you can reload around two players such as Paige Wasson and Tegan Erickson, that's a pretty sweet gig.
Yeah, it kind of makes coaching a little bit more enjoyable, that's for sure. But no, I kind of picked Plentywood. I like Rob Neby, played at Rocky, and got to know him pretty well there. In fact, I saw him at the tournament. I had to look twice. I didn't realize he was in Plentywood coaching. Couldn't figure out why you were, but no, he's going to be a great coach in the future. And I did Rocky basketball for 14 years, Boomer, and he's probably one of my favorite players on the men's side. Just gave it 100%. Never left everything on the floor every game, and a great person besides. But Rob's going to do great things, I think, at Plentywood.
Well, and he's back in his hometown, so he's probably not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And a chance to.
Yeah.
And Plentywood has really had a good girls basketball tradition now for many years, and it looks like they're just going to continue that with that performance at state, and obviously just the one loss on the year that they had. So yeah, and obviously pretty well coached. And again, they played North Country to within one at that divisional tournament.
Yeah.
That game was up in the air. So hey, give all the credit in the world to Plentywood.
Yeah. No. How about on the boys' side? I know you're a basketball junkie, Boomer. So I know you watch some games.
I tell you what, and I was the games I watched. I thought Belt was the best team in the tournament, honestly. And then Fairview knocked them off in the consolation game. Fairview is another team that just kind of surprised me. They finished second at the divisional tournament. They had Luster on the ropes in the championship game at that Eastern C divisional. Then they come back and beat
Right.
Belt. Belt was just, again, Belt finished fourth. I was telling Derek, my broadcasting partner, I said, Belt is one of those teams that that was just everyone was counting on that team to win a state title. They were just loaded, and it just didn't work out for them. They lost that really tough semifinal game. And I think once Manhattan Christian won and then got in there, I think obviously they probably were the favorites against Big Sandy to win that to win their second consecutive title. Manhattan Christian, just what a tradition they have. Every single year they're there, and whether it's boys or girls basketball, such a great tradition there. But I was really impressed with the Big Sandy team too. This is a team that won the state six-man title. They had some really good athletes as well. I really like that Braden Klein for Big Sandy, but Manhattan Christian maybe just a little too much for them in that championship game. And then Fairview, with that third place finish, Fairview loses just one senior, and obviously Hunter Charbonneau is a massive part of that team. He is absolutely incredible. I don't think that kid ever misses offensively. I mean, he has that mid-range jumper just perfected. He just doesn't miss, and he's going to go play for the Bobcats next year for football. But so they'll return 4 starters next year. Kind of the wild card with that, though, is that they're moving up to Class B, right? And how that all is going to work out and how they'll mix in. They'll be in the District 2B with the Wolf Point, Poplar, Harlem, Malta, Glasgow, make that a 6-team conference. I'm really excited to get them into that conference and see how they shake things out for both boys and girls. In fact, for all sports, because Fairview has such a great tradition, and but the other thing about Fairview moving to Class B, I think there's a lot of teams in the Eastern C Division probably who are just like, it's about time. It's going to open something up, right? I mean, they're like,
Yeah.
Hey, maybe someone else can go to the state tournament now rather than Fairview. So, but yeah, so Fairview kind of surprised me with that third place finish, like Plentywood did with the girls. But hey, they played extremely well. Charbonneau and Geldy, two really, really tough players there for Fairview. But it was Manhattan Christian, obviously. I think I really liked Belt, but Manhattan Christian obviously is the state champions, and they certainly deserved it. They were really balanced team. They didn't really have that one kid who was going to put up 30. Just a real balanced team, and they beat Big Sandy in that championship game.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I kind of like that Belt team, and I think their experience coming from the championship and the football and
Right. Yep.
made a huge boost for them there. But I also think you kind of alluded to a comment there about being state champions in football, and I think that there was probably a lot of pressure put on that team to be
Right.
state championships in football and basketball.
For both, yeah.
And you got to remember these are 16, 17, 18-year-old kids. A lot of pressure on that Belt team. I think probably more so than any team coming into this tournament.
Don't you see that though it's not even, I think it's every school. There's a group of kids that are moving up, and from junior high or maybe even earlier, they're kind of marked as that team, right? And so I'm sure for Belt and Big Sandy, it was kind of once they won those football championships, I think you're exactly right. Who doesn't want to win a championship in both basketball and football? That is an incredible feat, especially in Class C. And so I would agree with you. Probably there was some pressure there on both those programs to do that. Maybe more so Belt than Big Sandy, but some good teams, boy, some great athletes who can play some basketball.
So, Boomer, you've been covering state basketball tournaments probably forever. We're not going to get into our ages, but when is the last time that you saw coaches that looked like they should be starting on the JV team?
Isn't that funny? The Simonton kid from Big Sandy, he literally looks like he's 15 years old. And he was coaching in the state championship game. I had a lot of people comment on that. Rob Neebe, he looks like he could still be in high school, you know?
Yeah, he does.
So I think we grew up in that age where those head coaches were crusty old veterans, right?
Right.
and it's just a new group of people coming in and obviously doing some great things in basketball. But you're exactly right. Boy, they all look so young.
Well, I'm sticking to the fact they look young and we don't look older. I'm gonna stick to that one, Boomer.
But when
no one's gonna change my mind thought on that.
You've been around a long time though, when you have kids who played on state tournament teams or coaching now, and they're like 25, 26 years old, and you remember them playing like 10 years ago or whatever it might be. That does tend to make you feel a little bit older. It doesn't mean you are older, but the circle certainly comes around.
Yeah, when you coach kids and their kids are going to be seniors in college this year, that really
their kids are going to be
that does take an effect,
right?
Yes.
Right.
But no, it was just a great tournament. I thought great atmosphere at the Metro Park there in Billings. I thought things went pretty well. It was ran pretty well. I thought just a great basketball tournament. On the Class C. And Boomer, I want to touch a little bit on the Class B boys. I know that you weren't there, and I'm going to talk to somebody later about the B tournament. But you follow that north up there pretty close. And what's your thoughts on the Class B?
Well, I guess I watched some of it on NFHS. I was, following Wolf Point and Malta, obviously teams that I've been around with all year. I was I, Wolf Point. I know things didn't turn out the way they wanted, but boy, the memories that they're going to take away from that season with some of the wins that they did have, whether it was that challenge game against Fairfield, and then the first game of the tournament, Silk hitting that
Yeah.
shot to win it. That is just something you'll never be able to take away from that Wolf Point team, and they were so much fun to watch all season long. And Cole Hanks, his first year coaching there. This is, Wolf Point was a team last year that didn't even make it to divisional. They got beat by Glasgow and didn't make it to divisional last year. They got beat by Glasgow in the district tournament on a last second, free throws at the end of the game to win it. But boy, they came back with a vengeance, and they were really fun to watch. But I wanted just to that you brought that up, Malta. This is a team halfway through the season. I think a lot of people weren't quite sure what this Malta team was going to end up being, and they ended up in a state championship game, and they gave Loyola a pretty good run. Loyola had beaten them earlier in the year, I think first game of the year, pretty handily. Dave Costin, I think, is probably one of the more underrated coaches. He might not get some of the publicity some other guys do. I mean, he's won 4 state titles, finished second twice. I think he has about 425 wins in his career at Seiko and Malta. And this is a team that he took to that state championship game that I think at the halfway point of the year, people weren't sure whether they'd make it to state, and then they're playing on a Saturday night. Incredible, incredible season for Costin and that team. And he returns the core of that team. Now have to find some bigs, but they're going to be right back again next year with some of those players that they have. It'll be fun to watch next year. But Loyola seemed to be like that team that they were destined to win it. In my opinion, I mean, the games I watched on NFHS at the state tournament, they were tough. That is a good team, that Loyola team.
Yeah, for sure. I think the 2 best teams won the state C tournament, for that week. And I think the same thing. I think the same thing as far as the Class B. I think, the Big Fork girls and the Loyola boys, I think they were, I think, the 2 best teams in that tournament as well.
Yeah, it just seemed that they were destined to do it. They were that good. And, Big Fork is moving out of Class B. That's kind of the same situation. I think a lot of Class B schools, like C schools, are thinking of Fairview. Well, it's about time. Get them out of there and opens it up for someone else, because they've been so successful in Class B in so many different sports. But they'll move to Class A next year. But that Loyola team could be good again next year. I mean, so they have a pretty good tradition there as well. So I imagine we'll be seeing them back again at that state tournament next year.
Well, Boomer, I think this kind of wraps us up. I want to thank you for all your time and effort through basketball season, and definitely appreciate it. And might be an email and talk a little bit about some spring sports as we go forward.
Yeah, we're if we get it started here, they're all practicing inside. My kid plays golf, and I'm just hoping they can get a meet or 2 in before that state golf tournament in May, because it doesn't look like anything's melting here anytime soon. So thank goodness for golf simulators this time. So
yeah, maybe you need to fly him to Arizona and play down there or something.
Well, we've already done that. So hey, I'm in radio. I'm not made of money, but he's had his time.
All right. Well, thanks for everything, Boomer. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Bob.
And I'd like to thank our guests that come on the show and talk about Montana high school sports. Without them, this show would not be possible. And once again, if you like this podcast, please click on the subscribe button below to get alerts when we have up a new podcast.